How many hours are we talking about?
If it's 6 hours or more of sun, that's certainly a sunny location.
Okay.
If it's 4 hours to 6 hours, that's partial sun. And if it's less than 4 hours, like on the north side, very shaded, that would be a shaded area.
Gotcha.
Or under a tree.
And what about, we're talking, east and west side of the house. Mm-hmm. Should you be putting more shady stuff on the west side because it's not getting that morning sun, or is it the opposite?
It depends on what you have growing around it. You may have some very high trees that never gets that late afternoon sun.
Yeah.
Only gets the midday sun. So it depends on that situation. And remember, you may be looking at it right now and there's no leaves on the trees and you say, oh, it's sunny. But in the summertime when it really counts, it's going to be shaded. The east side is usually the sunlight is not as intense, and it's a wonderful place for certain plants that just like that. Like to wake up in the morning and be bathed in sun, but don't like to sit out there in the afternoon. And they'll tell you. I mean,
not me yet.
Not you yet.
I'm picking up, learning the language.
There you go.
Cool. So we've got, trees and shrubs out there. Some perennials are in at the time, the hardier perennials.
Yep.
And then, even there's some trees and shrubs that come later.
Oh, definitely. Because one, they're not going to do anything. Those shrubs are usually come later in the year because one, you don't have room in your garden center for all of this. We do have some, like Rose of Sharon, which will flower late in the year. Yep. That have been overwintered. They're perfectly healthy right now, and they're at last year's prices too. Yeah. But so I mean, those are deals, and go ahead and ask for them. If you don't see a plant that you want, a Rose of Sharon, ask for it. But it'll be coming in. But again, the philosophy of garden centers, as a rule, local garden centers, local growers and wholesalers that sell to retail garden centers, and this is only local. The guys down in Virginia and California want to ship it all at once because of the cost of shipping.
Right.
But if it's a local person, they want to get those plants there just before they're ready to plant. I mean, and that way you have room. They're fresh plants. They've been tended to at the growing site, and it's a great advantage to the customer to buy those local plants. So, most of the time, for instance, roses you shouldn't see around here before Mother's Day unless they come in a package and they're bare root.
Yeah, usually sometimes they arrive the day before Friday, Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah.
We hope to have them in before then because we know a lot of people like to gift them.
Yep.
But if the weather's not cooperating, last year, even though we didn't have frost threats, it was not a very cooperative year for warmer temps before Mother's Day.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the same way with lilacs. Lilacs will start becoming available now. Mm-hmm. And of course, the farther south that you go, the wholesale grower, for instance, in our area, just released lilacs south of New York. Okay, but hold off a couple of weeks to go Connecticut and north. Okay, because they know that it's warmer in the south and probably stay warmer in the south.
Right.
Okay, so you can start them earlier.
Yep.
Up here, it's a crapshoot, really. New England weather is not predictable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're on average about 5 to 10 degrees warmer soil temp wise than we are right now.
Well, they're zone 6 anyway, and then 7. Long Island is zone 6. Cape Cod is is 7. Heaven only knows why that happened, but New Jersey is 7. Maryland's 8.
Yeah,
just warmer.
Yeah, or even when we're talking within Connecticut, we have multiple zones in the valley, the Connecticut River Valley.
Right. You're witnessing that right now with your forsythia, aren't you?
Yeah, forsythia all up and down, in the Hartford, Farmington, West Hartford area, all along 84. If you're traveling through, if you're from Eastern Connecticut and you're traveling through Hartford, and when you start seeing the forsythia, you have like a 2-week heads up on it's coming.
That's right.
So I think we're playing the advantage.
Yeah, well, that's why the local taxes are so high in the valley, because you get that advantage.
Because you get a longer growing season.
That's correct.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you can maximize that. Cool. So, so the annuals that are coming into the pretty flowers that we've got in. I mean, pansies full strike this year.
Yeah, and those can be planted now because they're out on your shelves.
Yeah, and we actually have our early pansies that come in are awesome. We've had the same grower for years, and they're grown in cold houses. Mm-hmm. We think they can take a full snowfall.
Yeah, and that's important. The way it's grown is the key to success. If you had sure, you can put a pansy out in March and have it in full bloom, but you know what? It's not going to last when it gets out into the wild.
No. But they can handle hard frost, and you always look when you see the pansy with those darkened leaves. It's like a war wound, but they're tough as heck. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I want you to know that I bought a couple of flats of pansies.
Okay.
And they're doing very well over in Hebron.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, mine are right now. There's a little bit. The neighborhood rabbits are really enjoying the pansies. So, they're not so much in the. I should have planted them in the backyard where we have it at least fenced in, and it cuts down on the rabbit traffic. But in the front yard,
you got to put it in a container that's a little bit higher than a rabbit container.
Yeah. Oh, the container pansies are great.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. The ones that are on the light pole. It's a fiesta out there. So, cool. So why don't we go into now? We're going out there, seeing the plants come in. I kind of think of it as the bloom rotation. Yeah. As stuff's coming into bloom, and the seasonal plants are out there. Let's go through. How do we go through planting these and preparing them?
Okay. Well, let's start off with the annuals.
Sure.
The 6-pack, which is very common, right?
Yep.
And those will be available as we're recording mid-April. Another couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, you'll have the 6-packs out there.
Yep.
And the first rule is 5 fingers and a thumb. Remember that, Terry. 5 fingers and a thumb. Now, I don't know what came first, the 5 fingers and a thumb that God made or the 6-pack that man made. I suspect it's the God made 5 fingers and a thumb, because a 6-pack, when you tip it upside down, fits perfectly between there's 3 rows, right, of 2 annuals each,
right,
and they'll fit perfectly between your fingers. Plus, you'll have fingers on the outside to actually support things. So it fits into your hand.
Okay,
and 5 fingers and a thumb. Remember that. Tip it upside down. Put it between your fingers. The rows in between your fingers, so the plants are hanging down. And
so you actually have the stems of the annuals between your fingers.
Yes,
got it.
But it's palm up. Remember,
palm up.
Palm up.
Got it.
Okay, it's more stable that way. So you're gonna say, oh, there's roots coming through the bottom. That's normal. So you pinch off those roots. Pinch them off. It's a benefit.
This is after removing the plastic, not.
Well, no, we're not there.
Oh,
yet,
plastic's
because
still on.
If you don't remove those roots, the plastic's going to be more difficult to come out because you have to slide the plastic through those holes in the bottom.
Gotcha.
Okay, and that's where the roots are coming out. So you want to pinch those roots off.
Yep.
And then you want to squeeze each cell on both sides. Just squeeze it. And normally you can pick that right up. If it's not too dry, you'll be able to pick that 6-pack container right up and have those plants sitting in your hand upside down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now you'll notice that on each one of those cells, in most cases, there's going to be a real white, well-rooted bottom, maybe an inch or so, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, you can take them out of your hand now and work them individually, because sometimes the cells grow together and you can split them apart. Don't be afraid. You're not gonna ruin or harm the plant. You can actually do it good, because those roots have been used to growing in that cell and they've congregated on the bottom. So you're going to take that and rip the first 3/4 of an inch
So
off.
No harm to the plant ripping those roots.
No plant will be harmed in this operation.
Okay. Disclaimer.
Actually,
plant was harmed in the process.
You won't hear them. Well, some of us might hear them go, ah, but most of us don't. Just rip them off, rip that bottom off, and you can take that and put it in the container. That's soil, that's nutrition. Put it in the container, bury it somewhere.
Yes.
And then dig a hole. That's, you can do it with your fingers in most cases if you're planting in a bed or pot.
Yeah.
Plop that plug in there as high or maybe a little bit higher than the original soil line.
Mm-hmm.
Tamp it down. And then water. Don't fertilize. So many people fertilize right off the get-go. You don't want to fertilize right off the get. If you want, go ahead and after you're done planting, maybe a week later, go ahead and top dress it with I'm going to recommend an organic fertilizer. There was the Leapfrog, Tree Frog is a good one.
Happy Frog.
Happy Frog. I love Happy Frog. Yes.
Yep.
It's completely organic. If you took a bag of Happy Frog and poured it on your lawn or on your flower, it would never burn it. Mm-hmm. It's just naturally time released. Plus the fact that if you, to the right person, remember an organic landscape is worth more money in the long run, especially nowadays when you go to resell your house. Think of that. 5 years, that's all you need. 5 years of organic care.
Of just organic.
Just organic, you got to be good. And boy, we're going to do a podcast sometime, but it's just a different thinking. It's not harder. It's easier in many cases.
Well, you know what I think, and even like a lot of our lawn care discussions are getting in the more organic side. And I think what it comes down to is Mother Nature is she's very powerful.
Yes.
And more so taking the approach of enabling her to do her work better. That's, we'll get into lawns and stuff later, but, amending the soil, making sure there's a great soil. And that's what a lot of our composts are trying to achieve when we go to plant and put some compost down with it, is just getting that, microbial activity in the soil going, vigorously producing all the micronutrients available for our plants. And that is so much more powerful than anything we can add. And, we can supplement. There's definitely, the fertilizer is going to help it. It's going to help it bloom. It's going to help produce those flowers. Yeah. But on a whole, a healthy soil is going to be a greater sense of success for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at the forest. Nature has provided. And if you go out, next time you take a hike, go out and just take a handful of forest soil and smell it. You're going to smell the organisms it's a living soil, and you're going to smell the difference. You do that to your lawn, and you won't dig up some soil in your lawn. You won't smell that unless you've done it organically for a long, long time.
Yeah, and take care of the soil.
Yeah, so. Take care of the soil. It'll take care of you. But so, top dress, or a week later, or you can, a fish emulsion is a good watering agent too, a dilute for fish emulsion. So you should water the plants in so that the air spaces between the roots are gone. There needs to be contact there, but no need to fertilize right away.
Gotcha. So just let them get in there and let those roots get established.
Yeah, get them established, because that's they're not going to do their job. The fertilizer is not going to get to the roots until the roots are established.
That is an excellent point.
Uh-huh.
There we go. Cool. So now let's get into the larger stuff, the shrubs and trees, and planting those. Let's say we've done our work early in the spring, cleared out an area, and we know what the sun exposure is.
That's right. We know what the sun exposure is. We know what the soil conditions are, and we know what side of the house it's on. Okay, so we're not going to put a rose on the north side of the house, because that's the shady side of the house. A rose needs 48 hours of sun a day.
48 hours.
48 hours of sun a day. It'll survive with 24, and maybe it'll do okay with 12.
Okay.
But if you could keep the sun on it all day and night long, it wouldn't be bad for something like a rose.
Okay.
Now, a rhododendron, on the other hand, no, that needs a little shade. You know? Or it prefers a little shade. It'll be happier. Well, you'll know that. You don't know that now, but when a plant is happy or unhappy, and how you tell that, but you will as you.
Yeah, right now I just look for the physical signs. We're not on a talking basis as of yet, but hopefully in my later years and the more wisdom I achieve,
you'll be there, and people will think you're nuts too. Yeah. Anyway, smaller plants and shrubs, like a 1-gallon shrub or a 2-gallon shrub. Even.
Sure.
If I can handle a 2-gallon shrub.
Yeah.
It's the 5 fingers and a thumb rule. Again, you can tip it upside down if it's not too heavy, and put the stem or stems in between your fingers, and then tap on around the plastic container. Most time it's plastic. If it's clay, don't do that or not too hard, because it'll break. But most of the time it's not clay from a garden center, and that should just lift right off the soil.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's too big, if there's a bigger size, like a 3-gallon or a 5-gallon, well, then you can pick up the plant by the stem or stems at the soil line and then tap it with a trowel, for example, or some metal object, and it'll pop right off most cases. If it's really root bound, that means there's the